recently, 2021 in Kenya. You see, listen, I mean, this is very clear. We're not on a fishing expedition here. Nigeria made laws meant to be obeyed. There is one particular one that applies here, which I adumbrated in court very copiously to the Honorable Justice. That is called Article 12, Sub 4 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. When people hear of African Charter on Human and People's Rights, they begin to think, oh, it's an African law. No, it's a Nigerian law that was domesticated in 1983 by the National Assembly. It's just what is in the name. It's called African Charter. Article 4. Article 12, Sub 4 of that charter prohibits unlawful expulsion of any African, including Nigerians, from any country in the continent of Africa. And by adoption of the laws of Federation of Nigeria in 2009, it became part of the fundamental rights of Nigerians. So when you go to a foreign country and kidnap, abduct, arrest, by whatever name you call that your misconduct, and take that individual from one country to the other without due process of law, you have violated that Article 12, Sub 4. It's a fundamental right. And what is the remedy? Remedy, you release that individual, you take that individual back to where you got him from, and give him the due process of law. Nobody is, challenging or impugning the authority of the federal government of Nigeria to exercise criminal jurisdiction within the territory of Nigeria. But when you leave the territory of Nigeria, you must obey not only your own law, but the laws of that country where you found yourself. So federal government went to Kenya in June last year, and not only did it disobey its own law, the one I just pointed out right now, it disobeyed the laws of Kenya that requires federal government to knock on the doors of the judiciary of Kenya and say, hey, look, there's an individual here we consider a fugitive and we're interested in trying this individual in our court. Then the Kenyan court will ask questions and they must give answers. Do you know why they didn't do that? Because they don't have a good case for extradition. Just they didn't have a good case for extradition in 1984 when they attempted to kidnap Umaru Diko. What is the difference between that of Umaru Diko and Nnamdi Kanu? Two differences. That of Umaru Diko was nipped in the bud. Vigilant British intelligence caught them in the act and prevented it from occurring. Second, they tried to commit it on British soil. That of Nnamdi Kanu, they succeeded, and they committed it on Kenyan soil. These are the only differences. But what happened in 1984? Britain, in reaction to this attempt to illegally rendition Umaru Diko, cut diplomatic relations with Nigeria for 2 years. They arrested 17 individuals, tried them in court, convicted 4, sentenced them to imprisonment of between 4 to 6 years. And they expelled the entire Nigerian diplomatic staff in the United Kingdom and interdicted the Nigerian Airways plane aircraft that was going to be used in the extraordinary rendition of Umaru Diko. That aircraft remains in UK today, a carcass of its old self. So the consequences of extraordinary rendition are clear.
So sad.
But what is lacking so far is that no court of law in Nigeria has made a judicial pronouncement on it. Everybody knows that it's illegal, but we need a court to also say so, because we don't want to take the laws into our hands. So we still trust in the capacity of the Nigerian judiciary to see injustice and address it and redress it. If Nigerian judiciary fails to redress and address this manifest injustice, it's going to put a big question mark on whether Nigeria is a democratic nation or not, ruled by rule of law, or is it rule of men and rule of brute force.
So, lead counsel, if you prevail today now, where do you go from there?
Well, if I requested for 8 reliefs. Number 1, we got to call a spade a spade. The court got to call it for what it is. Extraordinary rendition is not extradition. The lawyers say ubi jus, ubi remedium. Where there is injury, there is a remedy. So if the court pronounces that it's rendition and is illegal, then he deserves a remedy. And what are the remedies? One, you restore him to Kenya if he wants, or you restore him to Britain whether he wants or not, because Britain is his second nationality. That means you got to release him from jail. You have to release him from detention. Nothing can be built on nothing. If you don't have authority of law to arrest somebody, you should not have authority of law to detain that person. And he deserves monetary compensation. That is what the Constitution says. In Nigerian Constitution, they wrote it in black and white, that if your fundamental rights are violated, you deserve monetary compensation. So the lawyers always put it there because the Constitution requires us to do. But sometimes I'm disappointed that members of the media will pick on that and say, Nnamdi is asking for 25 billion naira for his extraordinary rendition. That 25 billion naira cannot compensate him for what he went through. What Nnamdi is asking for is justice. And that justice lies in releasing him from detention and restoring him to Kenya or United Kingdom at his own option. And then you, as Nigeria, can proceed to Kenya and UK and file a proper process. Initiate the proper extradition process or proceedings to have him returned or extradited to Nigeria. Why are you afraid of that? Because you know, under the political offense exception, which protects self-determination. Self-determination is not regarded as a crime in any nation of the world, including Nigeria, under Article 20 of Nigerian law, that's the African Charter, Article 20. Now, Kenya has a companion law. United Nations has a companion law. So when you take anybody to any court in any country in the world, and you tell that court, I want him in my country because he wants Biafra, they will tell you to go to hell. You're a kidnapper extraordinary, whether you are government or not. You are a rogue. You should not try anybody in court for wanting to not to belong, for wanting a separate nation. That's how Nigeria was founded, for God's sake, in 1960. Is it not? It's self-determination. That was how Midwest region was created in 1963. Is it not? Yes. That's how Nigeria lost Southern Cameroons to Cameroon. Is it not? Is that called referendum or plebiscite? And that's how Nigeria gained Adamawa, the former Southern province of Cameroon, into northern Nigeria. So why should that of Biafra be different? It's only a crime in Nigeria. IPOB is only a terrorist organization in Nigeria, but not a terrorist organization all over the world. That needs to tell you folks something. That is why Nigeria dodged and went by night, ambushed Nnamdi and kidnapped him. We cannot take a government to criminal court and jail a government, but we can call a government to answer to the civil courts of this country. There are courts in this country, so Nigerian government must answer to this court. Like I argued before the court, upon what document did you arrest Nnamdi in Kenya? And upon what document did you bring him to Nigeria? Until they have answered that question, Nnamdi remains a person that was kidnapped by state action, by the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that will not stand in law and in fact.
Thank you. Bulaba doesn't care about how the North solve its own problem. I'm telling you. And why do I say that? Because in the midst of this negotiation with bandits, have you heard any word from the federal government condemning the action? Despite the fact that the majority of the Hausa population are rejecting that and are saying that is injustice. But he doesn't care. Why? Because this is a man that came out to tell you people that he doesn't even believe in one Nigeria. And what makes him say that? Well, to some certain extent, we want to blame him for saying he doesn't believe in one Nigeria. But this is a man that has been in politics for a very long time before he made that comment. And why did he make that comment? Because he has seen that, let's tell ourselves the truth. Now here we go tell ourselves the truth. At least, you know, get where we go talk and we don't go talk for grave. Which is the fact that the North seems to be divided across religious basis. We're busy pursuing who is superior. Is it Christian or is it Muslim? Abi? trying to establish the kingdom of God on earth. And he knows that to some certain extent, everybody have seen that that happens to be a major determinant in regards who wins the next election. Just like we saw with the Muslim ticket, Abi. That is to tell you that while other regions are thinking of something else, in the north all we think about is Muslim ticket, or who is of the same religion like we to vote into power. And haven't seen that and a lot of other variables. That is why he confidently came out to tell you that he doesn't believe in one Nigeria. And that is why you'll be surprised now, even in a state like Katsina, where there's high level of banditry and they are pardoning bandits now. When he enter Katsina now, they are clapping for him. Clapping, gathering around the whole street. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be surprised, because it's all about give and take. You settle who you need to settle that will ensure your next time coming or whatever, and you go. And in regards the plight of the Igbos, this is part of the reason I feel he doesn't care. Because let's face it, the fact is, the demands of the Igbos are genuine and authentic in regards the sense that, let's face it now, why will you, despite the fact that the Niger Delta, at least after the division, Abi, after they don't separate them, carve them out into a cycle, they are no more with the Niger Deltas, they are no more the same with the Niger Deltas, but they used to be, Abi. But the fact is, what I'm trying to say is the fact that before now they were one. And they are considered as the oil-producing regions of the state. And as a result of that, they have a lot of they have a lot of waterways. They are close to the ocean as one region before the division, before they now isolated the Igbos in the middle, Abi. But after they have isolated them now, they are on their own. The Niger Deltans now are in command. And since the Niger Deltas are in command now, they now compensated them with 13% derivative. Despite the fact that the 13% derivative doesn't go around for everybody, it's only for the bourgeois, for the big men of the region. Because if you go to Niger Delta, if you see the level of hardship, you will be shocked. You will be surprised that this is an oil-producing region in Nigeria. You will be shocked. So they are compensated, they kept quiet. So when the Igbos now come up to complain and say, hey, we don't have port, we're supposed to have port or whatever, they say, we no get water. You don't have water. It's the Niger Deltans that have water. Can you see? So by virtue of that now, they are left with no options. And again, they have succeeded in empowering people like Tompolo, them Asari Dokubo or whatever, that at the end of the day, when the Igbos come to say that we are one, this used to be the same region, we are all the same region, we are all Biafra or whatever they call it, they will say thunder fire, you God forbid. They will now remind them of during the civil war, Abi, when they unalive some Deltans or whatever, they put it in the air, they say Igbo people are no good people. They say just stay on your own, most stay on their own. So at the end of the day, everybody is living with poverty. Just like I keep saying, why will the oil companies have their headquarters in Lagos, remitting everything to Lagos and the rest of it? So a divided kingdom, and just like they say, a divided kingdom can never stand. That is the modus operandi. So everybody now is left to fight for his own. Niger Delta, they fight another cause. Igbo people, they fight another cause. So you look at all these dynamics, you get to see that at the end of the day, it's all man for himself. And let's look at it. In the midst of all this insecurity or whatever, now I'll tell you, take it or leave it. The Odudua Republic, the Lagos, happens to be the most fortified region. Why is it the most fortified? Because Amotekun is there. And there's swift action. Swift action in the sense that when something happens like this, they nip it immediately. And it stops. Part of the reason why the Niger Delta is even enjoying some relevant peace at the moment is because they are near the waterways, and apart from that, they happen to be the hub, the engine of Nigeria's revenue at the moment. So anything that affects them affects Nigeria's revenue. And that is why they find it very easy to nip any insecurity in the Niger Delta, but poverty may remain there. And that is just it. And we'll just sit down and keep deceiving ourselves and be thinking that this person is going to change, or because he doesn't understand what is happening. They understand perfectly what is happening. But having said all this, is there actually a solution? There is a solution, but it's only meant for he who is ready to listen.